All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cultivating Conversations podcast, where we talk about all things HR. In this episode, I have a special guest joining us. One of my previous HR certification prep students is here to talk specifically about her HR certification journey. Please welcome Teena to today's podcast. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Oh man, so I am Teena Burwell. I have over 14 years of experience in HR, and it really I literally started at the bottom and worked my way up. My first love is recruitment. I started as a recruiter for a small woman-owned staffing agency. I bounced around, did some contract work from staffing agency to staffing agency. And that was when I made my first, what I call power move into corporate back in 2017, I believe. And I stepped into from a recruiter into a true talent acquisitions role. And I had the opportunity to really dip my hands into corporate and how recruiting there really differs from staffing agencies and those small businesses. And I had the opportunity to grow from a talent acquisition recruiter into an HR generalist. And that's where I really got that first touch of, you're the one all be all. I'm the person that can talk to you about benefits, payroll, having a bad day. Like we covered it everything as a generalist. And I was working for Lord Corporation at that time, which was more of a manufacturing environment when you go up to some of the warehouses in Erie. And I remember it was right around COVID when I made the transition from warehouse industry to more of your nonprofit. I had done the warehouse, I had done a small stint at a smaller organization, but it was all about trying to figure out where in HR was I happy. I recognized very early on that the small environment, the HR manager, one touch be all. It was too tactical for me. I truly enjoy the strategy pieces, engaging with leadership. And so when I went into nonprofit, I went over and as an HR business partner
Right.
and worked in nonprofit for a little while and transitioned to where I'm currently at, which is in big tech at Lenovo. And super excited about it. Like, I truly feel like I have navigated the journey. I have touched different parts of HR and it landed me where I'm at present day.
Man, I love that. I have a similar journey in that I started from HR admin and worked my way up. I think it's good in that you get to see how things are done at different
Yeah.
levels and different roles. I can imagine moving from manufacturing. I've never worked in manufacturing, but I have worked with some HR professionals from
Mhm.
I can imagine that being a big transition from manufacturing to nonprofit or to
Man.
corporate roles and having to adjust and all of that. What made you decide to get a certification in HR? You have all of this experience,
Right.
you've been doing it a while. Like, why do the certification?
So I had to ask myself that question 3 times. The very first time I signed up to study for the course, to really try to put my head down and focus. So it's been 3 times that I've signed up and taken the course. But the first time that I did it, I had reached a point in my career where I had been working long enough and I had the work experience side of it. In 2019, I went back to school and I got my master's degree. A part of my own professional development was after I got my master's degree, I wanted to get my certification. It was truly just from I want to be an expert in my field. I want to have the education to go with the experience just to make me more competitive to the market. It was truly just for professional development purposes.
Yeah.
And COVID was COVID. I have I was pregnant with a kid. I had 2 kids e-learning from home, had just finished a degree, had a brand newborn baby, and just at that time, I had kind of bit off more than I could chew. And I needed to take a step back and really focus on being a new mom in COVID. And so the second time I took the exam, I was in a nonprofit role. And I felt like, okay, my kid's old enough now. I can dedicate some study time because one thing that I did learn going through the sessions was you've got to have the time to touch the material, read through the material, listen to the, like, you have to make time. And I can honestly say mentally, I wasn't in the space to receive the knowledge. Mental health is very, very important.
Yeah.
And so, just from a mental health perspective, I couldn't absorb the knowledge. It was way too overwhelming for me. And so, this time I said, you know what, Tina? It's the third time. You had the opportunity. You got to get it done this time. You got to commit no matter what happens in the outside world. And so, one thing that differentiated the third time through was accountability partners. I remember reaching out to you saying, I'm going to finish this. I need you to hold me accountable no matter what. Make sure I take this exam this year. My best friend was sitting for the exam as well. In addition to the weekly sessions with you, she and I set weekly sessions on a different day so I can guarantee to touch the materials twice a week. And then from there, I said, okay, Tina, you got to fit at least 30 minutes to an hour of study time in anywhere else. I had my laptop at the park, I had my books at the park with the kids and my husband. I took my material to coffee houses. We met for lunch. I studied at 5 a.m. in the morning or 11 o'clock at night. But this time it was just the accountability partners, the support from my family, and just overall being in a better mental state. And right up until the night before the test, I remember texting you like, girl, tomorrow, we send a prayer up. I got this tomorrow. And I promise you, walking out, you were the first person I wanted to say. I was so excited. Like, even all those times starting over, it was okay because there's no time frame on this. It's all about you and what you want to do.
I love that. I want to clarify. You've only taken the exam once,
Yes, I only took the exam one time.
several times.
But the first time I took the course all the way through, then I do feel like it is important to commit and register for the exam. Where I messed up the first time was I didn't commit. I was too nervous. The second time I took the course, I didn't get all the way through. I ended up having to stop because mentally I was not prepared. But this time I took it all the way through. Classes ended. I registered within like the next couple of weeks. I'm going to take the test. And I kept studying and I got it done. I passed the first time taking it. I was so excited.
I love that. I mean, you've already said a couple of things that I just want to point because I think they're really important. You talked about the accountability, which, a lot of folks who are taking this exam, we're adults. You have adult life, you have adult responsibilities. And so using your family, your friends, your study group, your partners to really help hold you accountable is an important point, right? Because you got to get through the material. And that's the other thing that you said, like, you really have to touch the material. I know people will say, oh, I just read like a summary or I did a little weekend thing. The reality is that there's so much that could be covered on this exam.
Yeah.
You really got to put in work to review and make sure that you feel confident in the materials you're working with. I love to hear how you found these time slots in your day because we all have stuff going on, but you made a commitment and that is how you do it. Get up early, maybe you do it on your lunch break, maybe you do it while the kids are it's smart. You gotta get it in. And I think even those smaller breakouts of reviewing the material, it helps to solidify in your brain, right? Even if the first time you see it, it's like, oh yeah, I just read that. When you see it again, you start doing practice questions and really working with the material. All right. So you talked a little bit about your struggles around moving with certification before, but what made you say, like, I'm actually going to do it this time? Was there anything that led to that for you?
I think it was, I'm a person where if I put my mind to something and it hits my goal list, I'm going to get it. I recognize that coming out of the experience I had been through, I had kind of lost that spark inside of me that was still like, go for it. Moving into a new environment where I was encouraged to like go for it. Like, I remember going to my boss saying, "Hey, I'm thinking about signing up for this course. I'm thinking about sitting for the exam." Like, it was just immediate, go for it. You're going to do great. Like, that all really, really helped. And it was one of those things where it was still on the to-do list. I had had my master's degree before I said I'm going to commit to moving any further in my education wise. I've got to get the certification. When you look through LinkedIn, how many HR professionals have some sort of certification? PHR, SHRM, SPH, like it's almost as valuable as having a degree itself. The
Right.
certification comes with the degree. It's a big deal. For me, it was just staying true to the goals that I had set for myself. Even though the first 2 times didn't work out and, handily say, dust yourself off and try again. Like, let's get up and try again. But I was very, very passionate about I wanted to make sure I felt good enough with my material because I didn't want to take it multiple times. I wanted to take it one time and that was it. After I finished your course, one thing that was very, very helpful advice you gave, I would study one section, but I wouldn't do the practice questions of that section. I would go do the practice set questions of a different section to keep my mind refreshed, to go back and forth. I love how you provided those questions were like the most valuable piece of the session. I remember the conversations we had and really trying to retrain your everyday functional HR brain
That's right.
to pass the exam. Like the way you help coach and talk through those things, it was very, very helpful.
What Tina's talking about here is the weekly coaching that we did together. And so I want to talk a little bit about the material. So you had the materials from the first time.
Yeah.
You had the STRM learning system the second time, but then it expired on you, right? And
Yep.
so then in the third time, you use the system that we had, and
Mhm.
it is recorded lectures,
Yep.
practice questions. It
Yep.
covers that same material that's covered in your SHRM learning system, but it summarizes it
Yep.
for you, right? And kind of puts it in buckets. So working with all of the material, let's talk about that. I know if you buy the learning system, you get all this books. Like, tell us about how you felt, what worked best for you in trying to dig through all the material and figure that out.
At first, it's almost kind of like you have access to too many resources. I had a weekly coach. We had our weekly sessions where we got together. I had your summary presentation, had the book. I like, you got a lot. Where I feel like it worked best for me was I got to pick the study method that I needed. I was always really, really excited about the live weekly courses where we talk about the assigned topic, for example. But what I quickly learned was there were some topics that were really easy for me. I would go through the book, maybe note some words or make flashcards for stuff where I didn't know details or examples. Your recorded sessions were great for if I'm in the car and I can't have my book out in front of me, but I can pull up your sessions, listen to it in the car, listen to it while I'm at taekwondo or dance practice with the kids, stuff like that. I can hear it.
Right.
And then anytime where I did my own personal study sessions and I would be reading through the material in the book, if something didn't make sense to me, I could go back and pull up your summary because when you talk through the things, I'm like, okay, these things kind of align. And with the way you structured the weekly check in, if I read the material first, it was easier for me to call out things. Not that they didn't make sense, but the way we do HR day to day might be a little bit differently than how the SHRM exam is structured.
That's
So
right.
being able to say, hey, in today's section, I read this or I saw this and I need kind of more help. And so I just literally utilized the resource available to me that worked best with whatever I had going on. So I didn't have any excuse not to study because I could listen to it, I could read it, and then I had those live engaging classes every week.
Yeah, I think that's great. And you just said something that I think is important to highlight, which is Which exams did you take?
The SHRM-SCP.
And which exam did we talk about when you first?
What? I wasn't gonna take the senior because I did it was just the confidence. Like, on paper, I knew I qualified for the senior. I had the years of experience. But I will say one of the biggest things that helped me get through this third round was just you being that coach, that reminder of, "You got this." Like, on those days, remember, I would send messages like, "I didn't pass this exam, freaking out." "Hey, it's okay." You would focus me. What sections didn't you pass? Where do you need to go back and review? That was a lifesaver. Towards the last 2 weeks before the exam, I was cramming material that was uncomfortable for me because I knew if I get questions in this area, I need to know this material versus going over the stuff that I knew off the back of my head. So it also gave me an opportunity to focus my studies. You're a fabulous coach.
Perfect. I just want to point that out because you were so set on the CP.
I was. I was like, I don't know.
Wait a minute now. For seeing your resume, how come what your LinkedIn look like? We have you.
So glad that I did. I mean, even down to the last minute at registration, I was like, okay, I can do this. I'm gonna go through it. And
That's right. So I know we can't talk a lot about the exams per se, but when you took the exam, how did you feel about the questions you received on the exam versus the questions that you practiced with? Did you feel more comfortable, less comfortable? Were they the same? Were they not? Like, give us your thoughts around that.
I really I promise you, I am so grateful that I had the quizzes and the practice exams because I almost feel like the real exam was easier because I had been looking at the questions so much, having a chance to study them and go through them. From a perspective of the material, the questions were dead set on. The examples, the category, it was very, very similar. The situational behavior, like all those types of things, it was very, very helpful having access to those questions on a weekly basis because, like I said, I learned for me, it's not that the exam was hard, but it was a lot to sit through, like just kind of straight through. It's more so about just getting your mind tough enough to take the exam because you know the material. But I really, really feel like those practice questions, they were very, very helpful. Like, I can't emphasize enough. It's not good to just go through it one time and that's it. Like, go back a couple of weeks later, switch up something different, go back and look at the questionnaire, do it again. It was very, very helpful.
And that's why I think it's important too. Like the questions that we go over in our weekly coaching is different from the questions that are in the system because we want you to have as much experience with the questions as possible,
Yeah.
right? So if you have the learning system, there are those questions. If you don't, there are the questions that will go through all. The more that you work with this material, the more comfortable you become with it, the more it starts to make more sense. So let's talk a little bit about your mindset, right? Did your mindset change throughout the program? Well, tell me a little bit about that.
I do feel my mindset shifted from not being confident to being confident that I can do it. I don't mind reading the material. I didn't mind studying, but for me, it was mostly just reminding myself, like, okay, you can do this. People do this all the time. It was literally just around my confidence. And I know there may be people who were like, you have confidence issues? But that's how important the exam was to me. That's how important it was to do well the first time through. Because I also wanted you to be proud too. Like, I didn't want to have to come back a fourth time and be like, I'm going to take this one more time.
And for women, so if you West,
No, you would. That's why you're phenomenal. There was a sense of pride. I wanted you to, coach, you did a good job. We made it to the championship. So it was literally just that in my mind, the confidence piece of it. Once I had made up and set my schedule with dedicated classes, dedicated study time, it was all about just confidence from there.
was there any moment during the prep program as you're going through the material where you felt like it kind of clicked for you? Or did you not have that experience?
The week before the exam, that weekend, my husband sent me to the beach so I could study. And I broke up the practice test after I took the first part of the practice test and I actually passed it. And no matter how many times you kept telling me, just focus, like it didn't click for me until I saw that success on the screen. It made me feel like, okay, I got this. I can pass this exam when I go in next week. It was just the continued use and practice with the questions when it really started to resonate. Those questions and getting conditioned to seeing them and thinking through them and reading them again to figure out what is the question asking me, that's when it really, really clicked.
Yeah, and I love that. And so we talked about your mindset. We talked
Mhm.
about some of your study routine, right? And
Yeah.
how, as an adult, we have to kind of balance and navigate that. We talked about your community. Is there any other? I know you had our coaching, and then you had the peer accountability that you were doing with your friend. What was it like having a community of HR people to kind of go through this with you?
It was very refreshing. Like, even my best friend, when we were meeting, we made it fun. We picked a different coffee house or shop all over Raleigh, Durham, Cary. And it was also nice when you get like, she would be studying something. I remember one day she was studying US law and I was studying workforce management. But because we both work in HR, she was able to ask me questions. I was able to ask her questions. We were able to have conversation about it as well. And I do think the community part of it is very important. Whether you have an accountability partner that you can meet with every week, whether you have a coach that's like, call me, text me, whatever you need, just having someone else hold you accountable for, did you study today? Did you do this? Because we're working parents and spouses and all of the things that are going on, I will say the community piece of it's just like the cherry on top of the cake. It was perfect.
I agree with that. It is helpful to have people who are going on the same journey as you, or
Right.
even similar journeys. Then you can navigate that together. You can talk together. Another thing that I wanted to ask, your friend was studying for the SPHR.
She did the SPHR.
So she was studying for the SPHR. You were studying for the SHRM-SCP. So both
Right.
senior level exams.
Correct.
Did you all note that overlap in content, or did y'all talk about that, or were you each kind of just doing your own individual thing?
We did. I mean, even after she took her exam, we called each other to
Mhm.
see were certain topics very heavy in questions on from the study material and her practice questions versus my practice questions. A lot of those situational behaviors question was very, very similar as well.
Right.
And so I really, in the back of my mind, I think I chalk it up to what were the areas that her exam were heavily questioned in versus mine.
Hmm.
Some of them overlap, but there were a couple of areas where she had way more of those. And then I think I shared with you, there were some of mine that they were very, very heavy in certain areas, and I could call it out very easily.
Yeah.
And I see the
Yeah.
overlap in some of it.
Yeah. The core
Mhm.
topics for the HRCI exam and for the SHRM exam really do overlap. One of the things that we have recently created and are pushing out to our base is a study guide that covers both. So our online program now covers both. And
Mhm.
then the study guide will also cover both because there's so many. And then a lot of times there are people that like, I want to prep, but I'm not really sure which one I want to take.
Right.
So even as we talk through that, because there's so much material that kind of overlaps, it was important for me to create a way for students who are interested in PHR, SPHR will see the relevance in some of the content that we cover for sure. So I think that's really important. I was curious if you guys saw any of those things as
Oh,
well.
yeah. We definitely talked about that because she's an HR partner and so am I. So we both were able to have a good conversation around what she experienced on her exam, the topics, the questions, and mine as well.
You passed, right?
Yeah.
What was your reaction when you saw that? When you were done, did you feel like, yeah, I knew I passed, or what was going through your mind?
So, first and foremost, my natural personality is like this. When it popped up on the screen, you're in this testing center and everyone's all quiet. The first thing I felt was relief. It was like, "Huh, is it done? Done?" I immediately, like, it was just relief was the biggest thing. There was a moment where your heart stops when you're waiting, but it was more just of like a sense of relief, sense of I did it, I accomplished it, I was excited,
Yeah.
and I was just ready to tell the world.
Did it feel like, yeah, I know this? Was it how are you feeling as you were seeing questions come up? And I know there's over 100 questions on this test, right? But just thinking about some of those moments.
To this day, there was one particular section around risk. Every time I would do the questions, I was reading the material. And even then, it felt like, what in the world? I could tell when I got to those questions because certain topics, I felt like I was powering through the exam, doing well. But then there were certain sets of questions where I found myself staring at the screen, reading the questions several times. It wasn't a lot of them, and that's what made me feel good because I knew if I can at least master 70 to 80% of the material, there might be certain topics where it's just not gonna be my strength. So it was important for me from a strategy of how I took the test. Let me go through first the stuff that I know it. Then if I need to kinda tweak it a little bit, I can. I also remembered some advice you gave us during class. You remember how we get down to those last 2 questions, and normally what my gut would say, I would sit on it and think so much that I'd go back and change it. When I took the exam, I remembered what you said about if that's what your gut says, leave it. When I reviewed by section, I would go back through all the questions, and if I got to that same question, I would think on it again, but if my gut reaction was still B, I left it there.
Right.
And so there was those pockets of questions around certain ones that made me feel like, and I remembered those sections from when I studied. I truly gave it a good go
Right.
with my gut, stick with it, and move on.
There. Yeah. That's all we can do, right? Because if we spend too much time lingering, we're going to psych ourselves out.
What?
Start getting confused.
Yep.
Bro, I love it. I'm so excited. Did you fun celebrate your accomplishment?
I went and so it was important to me to take the exam before I went to Miami because I didn't want to be in Miami studying. So I took the exam and went to Miami for a bachelorette party.
I love it. So you probably had lots of fun, right?
Holy, I'm so
Took the exam. Do you think that there is information in there that has helped you in your day-to-day HR profession?
oh man. So it's interesting you say that because I do feel like there are some projects that I'm working on where I'll give you an example. I'm working on a performance management project, and there were some chapters in the book where I could go back and reference the overall you know what I mean, to put into some training material that I'm putting together. So I think there were some areas that help or tie into my project work and things that I have going on at work. Then there are some topics that I just feel like either it left me saying, I need to go get more exposure to this particular area because my experience in benefits and TA helped drive some of that knowledge as well. And so the exam just left me thinking, okay, there's a couple of areas where I can still grow and develop as an HR professional, and that's totally fine.
That's right. This is one of those professions we are constantly learning. Things are shifting and adjusting, even just in the last 20 years. Who we are as HR professionals has
Right.
changed tremendously from when I started. It still had a very much a administrative focus.
Yep.
Certifications were just coming out and getting elevated. But now, 20 years later, it is a normal thing to be certified. And a lot of places and a lot of job postings now It's a requirement. Well, they're like, we don't care which one you have, but one
Yep,
or the other is going to be a requirement. And if it's not a requirement, it's definitely going to set you apart from
yep,
someone who doesn't have it.
exactly.
So, what would you say to someone who is maybe been on the fence? They're like, I think I should do it. I'm not sure. What would you tell that person?
I would tell them, make a decision and commit to it. If you are on the fence and back and forth, you're not going to have the commitment and dedication needed to get through the course, register for the exam, and sit for it. I would encourage anyone, no matter where you are in your journey, always strive to continue to educate yourself, to stay on top of rules, policy, all of those things. And if this is something that you feel like you're going to be an HR professional, this is the career you want for the next 10, 15, 20 years, then it should be a no brainer. It should honestly be, this is something I need for my own professional development, and I'm going to go do it. And once you make the decision to commit to it, stick with it. No matter how some of the topics may look, no matter some of the material you might read, just stick with it. The more you continue to review it and read it and practice the questions, you'll get through it. If you're on the fence, then it might not be the time for you. But if you commit to it and it's something you want to do, then absolutely step into it full force and make sure you just don't give up. You got this, keep moving.
That's right. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for that. And I will just add, if you are looking for a HR prep course program, please check the link below. We have several options from self-service to group options to SHRM learning system options. There is an option for everyone. So we would love to have you. We also have a free certification success community. I'll drop the link to that as well. Please join the community. It's a great way to connect with us, see some of the things that we're posting and sharing, and to really help you start off with a good network of people who can help corral you in this journey. So, Teena, thank you. Thank you so much for being here, for being a part of this conversation. We are so excited and happy for you.
Thank you. And I appreciate you. Like I said, you are a phenomenal coach, and anyone who signs up to take this course with you, they are definitely in good hands. Not only with the material, but with someone who's going to motivate you and keep you encouraged through the process. Absolutely phenomenal. 2 thumbs up. Thank you.